Welcome to the Building Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Dom Tarjanskis, and join us as we explore the world of construction. Each episode, we welcome a guest that shares career highlights and career advice, and hopefully inspires the next generation of construction professionals. Welcome to another episode of the Building Your Career podcast. Today, very excited to have Tim Redding as a guest, someone that I saw at the Youth Build UK Awards, who did a very inspiring speech. Tim is the CEO of a company called Volunteer It Yourself. I think we'll just get straight into the questioning, really. Could you tell us about your kind of current job role, and more importantly, what Volunteer It Yourself do as a business?
Sure. Well, look, thank you, Dom, for inviting me to talk. I'm the co-founder and chief exec, as you say, of Volunteer It Yourself. And Volunteer It Yourself is a non-profit social enterprise, which is all about challenging young people to learn trade and construction skills whilst helping to fix up and transform local spaces and places that matter. And it could be a rundown youth club or community centre. It could be a local sports club or facility. It could be a supported housing project or a green space, but any type of space or place that might be at risk, needs an uplift, and is also a really positive space for young people in their local community. So there's a potential connection there in terms of giving young people a reconnection within their community, but at the same time as building their own skills and employability. So that the model is very much about inviting young people to get hands-on on the tools, learning things like carpentry, painting and decorating, plastering, brickwork, plumbing, tiling, whilst being mentored by a professional tradesperson, and who often are also volunteers on our project. So it is an ambitious mix of skills training, skills development, potential employability, employment pathways for young people, coupled with ideas of people coming together, sharing skills, mentoring, doing something for their community. So with of course helping these spaces and places survive and thrive as well. So it's as I say, that there's a mix of outcomes there really that we're trying to achieve all at the same time.
I just thought this was an absolutely incredible idea to not only get people learning new skill sets, but also just to give something back to the community, but at the same time for them to feel part of that as well. I just thought it was absolutely incredible. I mean, out of interest, was there any kind of particular success stories? I think you mentioned one when you were kind of doing your talk. Is there any that kind of stands out for you as particular success stories?
Yeah, I think it's worth saying that our aim is specifically to engage young people, typically 16 plus, who are perhaps maybe have struggled a bit with formal educational training or conventional learning environments, whether that's school or elsewhere, and might also be unemployed or struggling access to job market. And so VIY is very much a sort of a bite-sized first step to try and re-engage them in learning, open their minds to a sector where there's a real skills gap, there's demand, there's a real opportunity to attract or a need to attract more young, diverse talent into the sector. So I think our success is about trying to take people who may be deemed disengaged or disenfranchised or marginalized and offer them a very accessible opportunity within their local community, maybe over a 3-4 week period, to get hands-on, learn some very immediate practical skills, achieve a City and Guilds entry-level construction skills qualification, perhaps the first sort of qualification they've ever achieved, which in itself is a success point. And to get them thinking, right, I've enjoyed that. I've actually found something I'm good at, and I want to pursue it into the sector. And so our next illustration of success is trying to find a next step opportunity or signpost an opportunity for young people off the back of VIY. So in a sense, we've done our bit. We give them a great first experience, and success for me is then having people say, do you know what? I've enjoyed that. It's been a great experience. I'm keen to find out how I could progress this into the sector. And so we've got some very recently, we've had a young person who came to us not in education, employment for training, 16, picked up tools for the first time on a project on a local community venue. And off the back of it, they got so into it, we connected them up with a painting and decorating contractor, a major national painting and decorating contractor who we work with through our relationship with Dulux, who provide all our paint on our projects. And they were so impressed with this young person, they've offered them an apprenticeship placement. And so immediately, literally off the back of a VIY project, that door has opened for them. I saw another story. We're just compiling our impact report for the last financial year, and a story that I saw in there and kind of reminded myself about. We had a young lady in Norfolk who worked on a project, again, had never done any carpentry or joinery, but spent 3-4 weeks on a project doing nothing but carpentry and joinery, achieved her City and Guilds entry level 3 in carpentry, and has now signed up and started a level 1 course in carpentry at a vocational skills college. And again, previously, she just wasn't in a position to make that step into that kind of course, or indeed it wasn't even on her radar as something that she might enjoy or feel that's a skills and a job pathway for her. So I think success for us is about trying to give people a great experience in VIY, but very much about trying to inspire them to think about construction as something that's relevant, accessible, achievable, and as I say, to try and matchmake them with that next step opportunity.
Definitely, and I think it's really good what you're trying to achieve, and I just think it's something that's tangible at the end of things as well, is that you can actually give a City and Guild certification and put people on the right track. So for all our listeners out there who are thinking of maybe starting out, I just wanted to showcase that there are companies out there that you can reach out to that are willing to give you that first step on the rung and step on the ladder as well. So Tim, if we could just go back to your kind of your personal journey then, how did you first get involved in terms of volunteer it yourself, and what's your kind of background in construction then, and where did it all start for you?
Well, I think if I'm being honest, I think I'm a bit of a failed engineer, because when I was a kid, I loved making stuff, whether it be I'm showing my age here, like an Airfix kit, but also a go-kart or things like that. I loved making stuff, and I thought engineering would be a pathway for me. I ended up at university doing an engineering course, and I ended up in a design role, and kind of it felt really having lost my way in terms of what I really enjoyed or what I really loved doing was being hands-on, and very much being head down over stress analysis equations as a mechanical engineer. I also felt I should have gone for civil engineering, but hey, that's another story. But I sort of fell out of love with it really, and moved away from engineering in my 20s, and so I think. On a bit of a zigzaggy journey through life, I ended up working with a youth club in South London, and they had a building that was kind of untenable. Toilets that don't work. It wasn't weatherproof. The youth club was at risk because their building was, as I say, it wasn't fit for purpose. And if I looked around me, I had a host of young people there for whom that was the one positive space in their lives. It meant everything to them. But I think typically they were young people perhaps who hadn't found the right pathway yet in terms of education or skills or jobs. And it just seemed a no-brainer to bring those two things together and say, well, why not help these young people fix up and save their own youth club? And it really took flight from that. And having done it and watched it work so successfully, I thought, well, surely every I sound a bit like a Bond villain here, but every village, town, city in Britain should have an opportunity like that, where it's about regeneration and connecting people within their community and giving people a stake in their community and ownership and boosting skills and employment. It felt like this is just a win-win. So I think I've kind of retro justified my life, that I now feel I'm kind of I guess supporting young people to find the joy of getting hands-on, and especially at a time when I think in Britain it feels a bit like that's lagged behind a bit in terms of being something that's a brilliant skills and career choice or pathway, and it shouldn't be seen as some kind of, oh well, I didn't get to uni, or I don't feel I can get to uni, and therefore I'm going to go down that route. I think it's utterly, totally valid and compelling in its own right. And so for me, as I say, personally, I feel like it's retro justified my life, all those misturns or thinking, oh, if only I'd done this or that. No, it was all meant to bring me here to this point in my life. And I really love the idea that it's getting people doing stuff that maybe they wouldn't get the chance to do at school or in other places. And so I just don't see myself stopping work now. I just love what I do. And of course, it's always about trying to improve and evolve it. But I feel at the heart of it, there's an inherent, it just seems a really positive thing from so many perspectives. I'm really keen to try and make it as accessible as I can do.
Definitely. And I think it's a great story and a great personal journey as well. But I mean, out of interest, either kind of, if you could turn back the hands of time and give yourself one piece of advice, or indeed some of the people who have come through Volunteer It yourself, is there any kind of common theme in terms of bits of advice that you would hand out when people are just starting out on their journey?
Yeah, and I think maybe it's slightly particular to construction as an industry. I think it's very multifaceted, multidisciplined as an industry. And there's so many different pathways within construction to stumble across and follow, I suppose, in a way. And I think the advice would be, as I sit looking maybe from the outside in at what happens on our projects, but also young people on the inside out when they give us their feedback on what they've enjoyed or why it's worked for them. I think it's that chance. It's like an appetizer rather than, it's sort of like try before you buy. There are so many routes. And I think something we find is many people join VIY because they're motivated by maybe doing something for a club that they belong to or space that they use, or wanting to get a sitting gills as a starting point to maybe reboot their education prospects or employment prospects. But I think the feedback we get is they love having the chance to dabble in a few things over a relatively bite-sized project. So it's not a big commitment. So for people who are thinking, how the hell do I sign up for a long-term traineeship or apprenticeship? It's quite a daunting prospect for people who might have struggled with disengagement from educational training. So I think there's something about being open to trying lots of different things in a bite-sized way. And by doing that, you'll maybe identify things that you don't enjoy, but you'll probably stumble across something you really enjoy. And I think something you find you've got appetite for, you've got aptitude for, and then great, that then gives you a sense of where you might go next. And I think aside from the kind of hardcore skills outcomes and accreditation outcomes we have in our projects and those progression opportunities that we look to facilitate, the other thing that I find interesting on VIY is that we track perceptions about the construction sector. So we know that almost 60% of young people on VIY at the end of the process say, I'm now interested in pursuing opportunities within construction, which I think is it tells me something that we've done our job, that we've given them a little taster and it's fired them up. And they're interested in more, which is great. And the other thing coupled with that is that we track people's sense of aspirations for jobs and careers. I think that what we know is about 80% of young people on VIY say that their broader aspirations regarding what jobs might be open to them or accessible has improved. And I think that's another really pleasing thing, that okay, even if it's not about construction or they're uncertain or they're open-minded as to where they might go from having done VIY, I think the fact they've it's got them thinking, it's got them reflecting on options, and suddenly things become possible. And I think these are very telling indicators we get back from young people. But so I think the advice is about being open to trying things and maybe trying a lot of things, and that will help you identify, hopefully, the thing that you think, right, I'm going to pursue that. Like the young lady who found carpentry or joinery, or the young lad who found painting and decorating, and they've now moved into apprenticeships. I think it's that's job done, I think, in a way that we've given people the chance to try.
Definitely. And I think that links up with a lot of advice that's given on this podcast is, as you said, just try out lots of different things, find out what works for you. and then kind of run with it and stick with it, really, because that goes down to a lot of directors who tried out different things at the beginning and found their niche and found what they were really good at. So yeah, that really links up with a bit of an underlying theme here. But are you a job seeker tired of endlessly scrolling through job boards with no success? Has your job search hit a dead end? Well, we're here to tell you there's another way. Here at Quest Personnel, we offer a variety of free resources to help job seekers just like you. Our team of expert recruiters is here to help you through every step of the job search process, from CV writing to interview techniques. But that's not all. We also offer exclusive access to workshops, networking events, and other job roles that you simply won't find anywhere else. So what are you waiting for? Get in touch now on our website, questpersonnel.co.uk. Just a little bit of a tangent there as well. I know you mentioned some of the people, and what we're trying to do here is maybe bust a few myths as well about the construction industry. So is there any running themes about what people thought the construction industry was like before they joined, and it simply wasn't true, and they were shed a completely different light when they were actually working out there on site?
Yeah, I guess you could answer it in a few ways. One thing that immediately strikes me is that, I guess we're all aware of the fact that there's an ongoing challenge and need to broaden or to bring more diverse young talent into the sector. I know you hear about aging demographic and also diversity, and I think so. Uh, Something I think which we really work hard to do is, for example, obviously the engine room of our model in many ways are those mentors, the people who are within the sector spending time to share their skills and work alongside young people on a VIY project. And it is where the magic happens, really, I think. And so, we work really hard to find mentors, female mentors who can become role models for young girls in our projects. I think that's really important to understand that construction is relevant, it is accessible, it is open to them, and to really positively promote that. I think in the same way that we're blessed with some brilliant mentors from minority ethnic backgrounds who are, again, that they're that the role they play in opening people's minds and to that there's an opportunity here and to really proactively try and change things about how we get that diversity within the sector. So I think myth busting, I think, yes, I think that's part of it, about making people understand that it's relevant, it's accessible, it could be for them. And then I think also, I guess this relates to stuff that you touched on earlier. I think about people thinking, well, if I want to go into construction, do I have to basically go to university and get a degree, or are there other stepping stones into finding my route in? And I think obviously both are part of the mix. It's neither one or the other, but I think that's maybe part of the beauty of the sector, I think, as well. I think perhaps that there's something again, I know that that there are more SME and sole traders, so small to medium-sized enterprises and small traders, sole traders within construction than any other sector in Britain. So I think it's a very entrepreneurial sector. I think there's a lot about opportunities for young people to kind of learn as they earn, and to think about going into work on a apprenticeship or an entry-level kind of careers opportunity. To it doesn't have to be about going through further education, higher education, until you finally enter the workforce. I think there's some real opportunities to do that at an earlier age, and to build your skill set. Because I think ultimately that, again, it's that the multidiscipline nature of the industry is that different aspects of construction might be linked to different pathways into those particular kind of job pathways within the sector. So I think it's not a one size fits all. I think the beauty is that there's opportunities which are very much short term, like ourselves. There's, again, more medium term and longer term opportunities like apprenticeships over multi-year opportunities, and I think that's really healthy because it allows people to move through picking up additional skills and qualifications, rather than necessarily saying there's only one route, it's school, college, university. and the CITB. So I mean, again, you've got something there that they're very representative, I think, of the range of courses they offer, from very short courses to much longer courses, and I think
Hmm.
that is reflective of part of the attraction, I think, in terms you've got options, and
Hmm.
it's not just that there's a sole pathway here.
Yeah, brilliant. And I mean, that's kind of, answered one of the common questions on this podcast is that, for whatever reason, people can't go to university or get the degree educated route. It's good to know that, companies like VIY exist to provide different options for people rather than just kind of giving out advice and saying you can do this or do that. You're actually doing something about it and providing those options. So I think that's fantastic.
I mean,
Um,
I would also say, Dom, that one thing, I think part of that myth busting thing or opening people's minds piece or inspiring people, I think for us, the ingredient that we, well, I guess, benefit from is having construction sector, trade sector partners, employers who we very much invite to be part of our project. So
mhm,
uh, I think I mentioned Dulux or Travis Perkins. So they provide product, so they provide tools and materials to make our projects happen, but they also get their people to come down on projects, to
mhm,
mentor, to meet young people, to talk about the opportunities that they offer as an employer or
mhm.
further training opportunities that they might enable, and to kind of again to help put um, um, what those pathways are on people's radar, and that's a really important thing, I think.
Yeah.
Rather than waiting at the end of the process
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to receive young people, they're reaching out to try and do that education piece, that awareness piece, and that's vital. And the same applies to other construction companies we work with. The
Mhm.
more you can engage them further upstream, the more likely I think we are to draw people into the sector, excite them, open their minds to that breadth of opportunity and pathways. And so I think it's a really important piece of this isn't down to us; it's down to a mix of partners and stakeholders all pulling together to try and do this.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that leads perfectly onto our last question, because you kind of touched briefly on it there. But with the CIOB saying there needs to be 250,000 more people in construction in the UK construction industry by 2027, obviously we need to attract a lot more people in the business just for it to sustain itself. So, what and you touched upon it briefly there, but what can the industry do as a whole? And this is more to our maybe directors of construction companies or more senior management listeners. But what can they do either as individuals or as a company to both attract, retain, and nurture that young talent into the business?
Yeah, and I think this does maybe pick up on the points I made in that last answer. I think
Mm-hmm.
there is something about taking an active stake and um, uh, proactively reaching out to engage people up front. And I think in many ways it all comes down to giving people a brilliant first experience, because I
Mm-hmm.
think you can. Okay, there's about trying to engage people, offer opportunities, draw them in, but it really comes down to whether what you're offering is compelling, inspiring, motivating. Does it feel relevant? Does it feel accessible? And if all of this is tick, 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 you're far more likely for people to say, do you know what? I've really enjoyed that, or I found something I'm good at, or I found something I want to find out more about or pursue. And really, I just feel that first step for young people to be aware of it, to think about it, to have a go,
Mm-hmm.
that is, it's the hardest step to take, isn't it? If you can do that job and draw them in, I think we're far more likely to then see them fly and to progress into that sort of stepping stone journey into the sector. So I think it all comes down to, I guess, with anything, it's just to really to offer people a brilliant experience, so they just are that they're actively crying out for more, and so I think employers can play a big part in that. And I think
Mm-hmm.
again, for me, there's something about taking construction and training and opportunities to people. And I
Mm-hmm.
think going back to the start, perhaps, about the VRY model, I think one reason I think why we have success in what we're trying to do and engaging people in getting hands-on and trying construction is that it happens on people's doorstep within their local communities, maybe within environments with which they're comfortable, their youth club, a local sports club, a local green space, or a local supported housing project. It feels relevant, it feels worthwhile, it doesn't feel fake or mock. It feels like a really vital thing for the community. So it's something that benefits them, it benefits their community. And I think young people are savvy, that they see that, they get it, and they understand there's something in it for me. And okay, fair enough. And then I can do my bit for my local youth club or my local community. I think people understand the value exchange there, that there's a great opportunity and it has meaning, it has impact. It's not some teacher student thing, some conventional education thing. I think when you're trying to reach people for whom they're coming from a standing start with all of this. Very few young people join VIY with any kind of background in trade or construction or prior experience, and I think so you've got to offer it up on their terms, in places and spaces that work for them. Make it easy, dead easy to engage with. Reduce barriers, and even most of our young people on a project will live very locally to that project. And I think that so physically you've got to take it to them. And I think it's about access in that way, in its broader sense. It's about making this stuff inspiring, motivating, fun, but accessible, easy to say yes to. So it's not about getting people to go from 0 to a 6-month commitment. It's about saying, look, how about trying it for a couple of weeks? You enjoy it, you can do 2 more weeks. You get to the end of that, let's see where you're at. And I think that's, if there's any trick that we're trying to pull off here, it's that, I think, just getting them in. And then hopefully once they're in, they'll be won over by it, and they'll find something that works for them and they enjoy.
Brilliant. Well, Tim, you've been an absolutely incredible guest. I knew you'd be perfect for this podcast. So, all I can say is to our listeners, VIY is there. I'll put a link to the website below as well. So, Tim, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Dom, appreciate your time too. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Goodbye. Us on the Building Your Career podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing from our guest and learning about the different career paths available. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe so we can reach even more listeners. And if anyone wants any free CV advice or simply wants to know the options available to them, don't hesitate to get in touch.